Thievery is the most sincere form of flattery, or something like that. Hello and welcome to Game Tales, our weekly feature where we recite the stories of D&D players and the many goings-on in their adventures. Today's story comes from yours truly. It is set in 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons, and it takes place over several modified modules. Without further ado, I am the Penitent with College of Lore. This is Game Tales. Take a moment to like this video and subscribe as I tell you the tale of Mollymauk in my home game. Special thanks to our patrons, Remy Sweeten of Winter. You guys are alright. Check out our Patreon in the description below. Mollymauk is a character originally played by Taliesin Jaffe in Campaign 2 of Critical Role. For those that are unfamiliar, this is a Critical character that I have used in this home game. Kind of repurposed, changed the backstory of a little bit, and ran with it. In this world, Molly woke up in a shallow grave in Barovia with no memory at all, which is kind of mirroring the plotline of his original character. To understand his arc in this game, you have to understand 3 people. Yasha, also a Critical Role character, Scorn, a homebrew character played by a player at the table, and Esmeralda from the module Curse of Strahd. They are the 3 most relevant people to Molly's story arc here. Yasha is this first of Molly's oldest friend, and literally pulled him from the shallow grave in Barovia. Scorn is another tiefling blood hunter, but whereas Molly is very charismatic, Scorn is every bit as edgy and lonery as one might expect a tiefling blood hunter character to be. Esmeralda is a canonical character, and her backstory is kept largely the same, except as a free-walking Vistani, she has this very abusive ex and a very troubled past, kind of disconnected from the world of Barovia. By the way, before I get into this proper, I should mention now, heavy spoilers for a lot of Critical Role Campaign 2, Curse of Strahd, and Storm King's Thunder. So be warned ahead, and also if you're not a fan of Critical Role Campaign 2, or any Critical Role stuff, this might not be the story for you, but I hope that you can enjoy it regardless of how it reflects regardless of how it uses a character from a outside source. So, when the party first met Molly and Yasha, they were performers in Rictavio's Carnival in Vallaki. And they soon caught on and traveled together because, well, Strahd showed up and they had been in Barovia for a while. I believe that Yasha had wandered in there while Molly was this person who was found in a shallow grave. So they wanted Strahd dead, but they didn't really have the means to do it, so they started working for Rictavio, or Rudolf Van Richten. And Van Richten and Van Richten's cohorts and Molly and Yasha and the party kind of joined together to finally put an end to Strahd. Yasha and Molly stayed on the Van Richten side of things, running with him and helping the party only when commanded to do so, or they were free to do so. Of course, Van Richten, at a later stage of this campaign, would die fighting Strahd, and kind of sacrifice himself to kill Strahd, which led to Molly and Yasha officially going all in, joining this party. They are a part of the crew now, and Van Richten is gone via a sacrifice to let everyone else escape from Castle Ravenloft when they were retrieving one of the magic items that escapes me. They do finally kill Strahd, and they end the reign of terror over Barovia. Yasha agrees to spend some well-earned time with a girlfriend that she had made and go back to Waterdeep to deal with the family of that girlfriend, while Molly, Scorn, and Esmeralda all agree to journey into Storm King's Thunder with some other characters. While in Storm King's Thunder, they had adopted Van Richten's wagon as a method of transportation, and Molly forced the party to play a game of Truth or Dare in the back, where Scorn and Esmeralda took basically a bunch of truths, because neither of them wanted to do a single dare. But even through the truths, Molly was able to kind of bring out this conversation in them about how they have to start letting the people they're traveling in with, starting to let the people they were traveling with into their lives, as Scorn had been very closed off, Esmeralda even more so, and if they were gonna be here, they might as well start to share their experiences and let people know about their past. Which started to let some things in about Scorn talking about his upbringing in a very messed up religious environment, and Esmeralda talking about her ex, and her child with that ex. They have several run-ins from the very start of Storm King's Thunder, right after this conversation, really, with a group called the Seven Snakes, a canonical group I could have fleshed out more. Molly kind of shows their leader up at the town square at the start of a campaign, kind of shows him up to his own men, which infuriates him. This person named Zolkeen is their canonical name. at the Eye of the World later, when the temple collapses, they are beaten from a dragon fight, hurt badly. Molly is about at 1 HP, and thanks to a very successful stealth roll, Zolkeen kind of sneaks up behind Molly and misses his armor class by 1, piercing the sword through Molly's jacket instead of Molly's person, and just barely avoiding killing Molly. This kind of became a theme over the course of the game, Molly getting these death flags and just kind of shaking them off. 6 or 7 times there was the opportunity where he could have well and truly died. Not all of them this obvious, but, you know, examples like getting stuck in 1v1 combat on a mountain, or getting cornered by himself in a hangar, that just he somehow managed to get out of every single time. They eventually traveled to Citadel Adbar, discovering that Molly actually had a former life there as Lucian. Lucian has a very different story in Critical Role Campaign 2. This game took place before Campaign 2 had properly come out, had properly finished, at least. Especially with a lot of the endgame Lucian Molly stuff. And I decided I was going to do something entirely different with Lucian. And what I did is, he's someone with an established, you know, hierarchy at the Bloodhunter Order, someone with a lot of money, including his own airship, and someone who has a wife and children. Which leads to some interesting encounters, interesting conversations, but Molly has agreed to help the party, and he's going to stick it out. So he travels with them to Ironslag, the home of the Fire Giants. And while they are there, they try to negotiate with the Duke Zalgo of the Fire Giants, to get their magic conch to travel to the area where they can find King Hecaton, or at least hope to find what happened to King Hecaton. The Giants, unfortunately, are already under Zhentarim rule, and the Seven Snakes are a Zhentarim mini-faction. This is not a negotiation, it's an ambush. The doors to the main chamber of Ironslag are locked, and the snakes emerge as Duke Zalgo and his wife and his hellhound turn to fight the party. It is a long, drawn-out combat, but at one point this large metal statue in the room falls over, trapping the leader, Zolkeen, and the lead sniper of the snakes on one side of the room with Molly and Esmeralda. The sniper, to this point, has been kind of clearly played as someone who is abused by their leader, messed with by their leader, and under his thumb. Doesn't really want to be here, wouldn't really be doing this if she had a choice, but she doesn't. Esme is taking some significant damage because the sniper rifle that we've homebrewed for this does a lot of damage. And that's obviously not ideal. At a certain point in this fight, Molly is stabbed by the leader of the group, by Zolkeen. But he makes an acrobatics athletics roll to kind of pin them to this one platform above this lava flow entry, to kind of flow this, what is initially supposed to be flow this molten into this statue that had now been fallen over. And Molly kind of holds them both there, him and Zolkeen, and looks at the sniper and says, "Hey, I get it. It's okay." The sniper fires at Molly as, with his last action, he hits the release button for the lava flow, immediately flooding the room with lava, putting his body on this platform by itself, and if Zolkeen didn't have a teleportation bracelet provided by the Zhentarim, he would have died, but as it stands, he cannot do anything. He has to hit the bracelet and just be gone, be back at their home base. As do the other snakes in the room. Luckily, the party is able to negotiate their way out, and a lot of them were on higher rafters at this point, or were just closer to the door. Scorn is a winged tiefling, so he's able to go grab Molly's body off of the platform and get it out, and they all kind of erupt into this mountainside. Now, at this point, as a DM, I realized I had a problem. That problem was that Scorn still had one use of resurrection that he had gotten from a temple in Barovia, the Amber Temple. And they take the body outside, and they escape, and they flee into the snow. And they're talking about using this resurrection when a man steps into view. And this is kind of my, like, Hail Mary to try to figure something out, because the death here, it's a narrative point, and it matters. And it's kind of a narrative point in the same way that Molly's death in Campaign 2 is a narrative point. And I am not generally in favor of the idea of, like, oh, you know, I have to have this pre-planned thing that has to happen. But it was something that had been discussed with the players as a possibility, as something that the players wanted to see happen, as something that would be interesting for the character growth of two other characters, Scorn and Esme particularly. And since it was kind of agreed upon by all parties that this is something that probably should happen for the growth of characters, it was something I wanted to work out. Now, obviously, if they found another way to resurrect him, I'm not gonna stop them from doing that. But sometimes if you and your players want the same thing narratively, it's okay to make it work as best you can. So a man steps into view. This man is Rahadin. He is holding a magic ruby that he had stolen from the fire giant Duke. And in his other hands, he holds the ashes of Strahd. And he uses this ruby and starts performing this ritual that will bring Strahd back to life, as this mist starts to fill the mountain peak by Ironslag. Strahd's body begins to form in this open area, and it's worth noting one of their party members at this point is Irina from Curse of Strahd, who is clearly not happy about this. Scorn gets an idea. It's not something he wants to do because Molly is probably the person he's closest to at this point, but it's something he feels he has to do. The body is forming, but it hasn't yet gained its vampiric strength. So he goes and he touches Strahd's body, and he casts Resurrection on it. Now, this should have either no effect or very minimal effect, but I kind of decided here that, like, rule of cool, and it was a really neat idea and a really clever idea. So, Strahd is restored to life, very briefly, but because of his unnatural lifespan for a human, he immediately crumbles to dust, because he would be about 500 years old at this point. And humans don't live that long. Rahadin hisses and kind of gathers the ashes back in this magic urn. And he swears he swears that this isn't over while he taps on his bracelet, confirming that he is now also working for the Zentarum. They finally bury the body in the snow, give him a eulogy, and put his coat on a cross over his grave. Then they're approached by the sniper. Molly's sacrifice let her kind of escape without her abuser. She was left on a catwalk where the lava flow wasn't actually going to bother her, but she is also the one who kills him. So she asks for their help. Esme and Scorn are obviously against it, but they do get outvoted by the rest of the party, and largely the arguments are shut down by saying it's what Molly would want. Yasha at this point is still in Waterdeep, but is informed of this via Sending Stone, and all she asks is who. She wants the name of the person responsible. She is a fallen angel, and she is out for blood at this point. The world does go on, and the party do defeat a kraken and a dragon at the end of the campaign. As repayment for their help, the Storm Giants send someone who can cast Resurrection on Molly a few days later. During this whole point, this conversation, and this adventure, Esmeralda and Scorn confess that they do have feelings for one another and enter a relationship. And they're excited to see Molly and to tell Molly this, finally, when they bring him back to life. So they dig up Molly's grave in the snow, and he is not there. And Scorn just says, "You fucking bastard." And somewhere, near an open grave, Molly stumbles out with no memory and goes on to new adventures. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any D&D stories of your own, please tell us in the comments or email us, and we may read them on this feature. Thank you for watching this video from College of Lore. Remember to like this video, subscribe to join the party, and have a fantastic adventure.